I want to show you 5 really important things because it really helps you to be a better guitar player. Before we start, I would recommend you to check out my free crash course. You find it in the video description below this video. A lot of fun going on there. Check it out. So, tip number 1. If you're playing chords, if you're playing notes, whatever you do on guitar, make sure to not make one mistake. Okay. The thing here is, what's going wrong is that your angle is not steep enough. The fingers really have to stand at an angle where they don't mute the strings at the back of the finger. This is a really common problem I witnessed in all those years where I did offline guitar teaching. And it's just a tiny little movement. I mean, from this to this, it's not that far of a movement. Take a close look how it's not much, is it? But make sure that the fingers are in a steep angle, hitting the strings and pushing them down on the fretboard. This is tip number 1. This is especially hard on a C chord for the index finger because you have it kind of going here around from the back of the neck on the fretboard. It happens a lot that the finger is doing something like this, but it needs to be in a steep angle here. But middle finger and ring finger, of course, too. Always check out when you're playing your chords, are all the notes there? No matter what chord. You have always a finger being in the way when it's not standing steep enough. You know, if it's a D chord, the ring finger is not steep enough. On the G chord, the middle finger is not steep enough. Just be aware of the fact that that might be a problem when something's going wrong and to think, why do I sound so crappy? That might be a reason. Number 2, take a look at the point where your fingertip is pushing down the string on the fretboard. If I say push down with your middle finger the 3rd fret of the E string, do it here and not here. You already hear that? I have to build up way more pressure to create a tone than I have to here. And if you try to do that with all the notes in a chord, your hand is way more relaxed than it is when you play the chord here. I have to build up way more pressure to make the strings sound, and still they sound a little bit detuned because I have to build up that much of pressure. Tiny little movement makes it so much easier. This was tip number 2. Tip number 3, take a look at your wrist and your thumb. I saw really funny hand movements in chords from a G chord like this. People are having like a 90-degree angle here in their wrist. Take a look at your hand, how it looks when you're just having it just there doing nothing. Your hand does not this naturally. So try to be as natural as possible while grabbing your guitar neck. I mean, especially for chords like this. I mean, this will take some time to get used to those crazy things you do on a guitar, which sounds so cool, but try to be aware of that from the beginning. I mean, it will take some time, and every time you grab a new chord, it will be a challenge for you to master it in a healthy and effective way. But take the example of G and D and take a look at my wrist and my thumb. At the same spot. When I play, of course, a C major chord, you see a tiny movement my hand is moving, but there's not that much going on. I mean, for certain chords I have to move my hand a little bit down the neck or up the neck, whatever. But do a dry exercise with your chords, change between them, and analyze your wrist, the angle here, or how close you are to the neck. Where's your thumb? Is your thumb maybe here? Don't do that. I mean, there are techniques where the thumb also plays and it's there to grab a note on the fretboard, but in general, it should be somewhere here to have a counter pressure for the fingers, because if it's too much over here, the pressure is going in your hand, but I think you have the biggest power between your fingers and your thumb. So try to keep that in mind. That was tip number 3. Tip number 4, do dry exercises. I just mentioned it already, but I can't say that often enough. When you have your chords and you want to learn a song with 2, 3, 4, 5 chords or whatever, make a dry exercise between those chords without strumming, without doing anything else, but just focusing on where to put your fingers in style. You know, whatever chord progression it is, do it for 20, 30, 50, 200 times, whatever. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just do it, to be really sure where the fingers have to go in your chord progression. And try to be as effective as possible and try to change the positions of the fingers at once. Don't do something like this, G and then D, the ring finger, the index, middle. Try to make it, and if it takes half a minute to do this, then it takes a minute. You will see that it will get really fast after a while. But do that. Change those chords dry. And the very last, and I think to me most important tip I want to give to you is don't be too hard on yourself when you start playing the guitar. It's supposed to make fun, and there are so many things you can look after and things you can learn. There are so many things you can do wrong. And it's okay to make some things wrong at the beginning. I mean, there are so many great musicians out there who never had a teacher and just taught them everything by themselves. And they have maybe some awkward techniques or whatever. Sometimes just don't listen to me. If you have the feeling, okay, man, I just want to play and all the stuff I have to consider, it's important to think about stuff. And I think you're critical enough about the stuff you're doing on the guitar, but it's also important not to be too hard on yourself, okay? I mean, you're doing this for fun, have fun with it. If you want to play a song, I mean, if something is too hard for you, try to play an easy version, try to make a dry exercise first, whatever, but try to focus on the fun there. And I think this is the most important advice I want to give you as a beginner. Don't give up if you struggle with something for days or for weeks or maybe for months or years. First of all, this is normal. Everybody on every level struggles with a new thing he or she wants to learn. So always keep that in mind. It's always a process, no matter where you are. It's about the fun and the passion for the music and the instrument. So thanks for watching.